We expect women to get emotional and have tantrums just like children, but we don't expect men to do that. It's more dangerous if men do that because men actually have physical power. So we're used to that kind of thing, and that's our common experience. And even if you're a liberal and you pretend to say that men and women are not, you know, are not different, really, we treat women very differently. Um, and if we think about how we treat women differently, it's more childlike. And I don't think, Claire, I don't know, do you find that offensive being a woman, being given preferential, even childlike treatment? If you get emotional, I won't get angry at you. I'll be like, that's just a woman.
I think I could choose to get offended, but when I was younger. But as you grow older, you see the point of the things that you rebelled against when you were younger, like respecting one's elders um, um, and also when you're young, you just don't see the point of many rules, and you don't think that your elders know better until you think, well, you're being a bit unfair in the sense that if they've been around for longer, they should have been able to pick up more, except that they're no longer young and sexy, and that's why you rather despise them and find them annoying and irritating and moaning and being right all at the same time. So
That's
um, you cut out.
sure. So you don't feel offended anymore by these things because you kind of seen the light of why it makes sense that women are treated differently because they behave differently.
As I move towards becoming an elder, I think men and women who are of mature years should get more respect. And as you get older, you I don't think in a rightly ordered society that you get treated badly. It's only when you live in a cult of youth and beauty that they just assume that. Um, I suppose that they think, well, you're not having as much sex as me, therefore you must be stupid or morally inferior. I mean, do you ever get people saying similar things to you? Like, I've just had sex, therefore I'm a winner, and you haven't, and therefore you're a loser. I kind of get things being said to me along
Oh,
these
interesting.
lines.
I mean, I do say that to people, me, because I say, um, what do I say? I
I
say
suppose you
that if
say that
you're,
to unmarried men because you are
yes,
married. So the presumption would be that you are getting some, and those who aren't married aren't getting any, or have to struggle to get any. And
sure, you have to hunt for it all the time, essentially. But I try not to call people losers because my approach religiously is love for all and hatred for none. It's more out of sympathy and pain, feeling other people's pain. I think that's a better approach. Like it's a
but the
need.
Quran is talking about losers all the time. I used to think it was just this horrible American, you know, thing
It's not
that
that
calls
kind
people
of
losers.
losers. It's like you are losing in life. So yeah, I do see that people are losers in that sense. But it's like it's not the Americanized insulting version of losers. It's like you literally are losing. So what else do you call it? It's like you're losing in a lot of things that are important to you that you actually want, and God is just trying to help you get it. It's not like God is saying loser. It's like it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Like God is the all powerful. You're just like you're not even a grain. You're not even an ant. You're nothing. You're not, there's nothing that God needs to look down on to you. He created you. He loves you. He wants the best for you. But we inevitably do badly for ourselves because of our own
But
arrogance. Yeah.
yes, yes. But I suppose if you want to talk about being a loser, I guess a loser in what? And I think the answer must be in the game of life. We
Mm,
are, that we have to win, I suppose, because if we accept that we were created to um, play in this game of life or take this exam of
mm,
life, um, that there are certain ideas about winning and losing, and I guess winners get to heaven and losers go to hell.
And in this life as well, it's not even you have to wait until the next life. People experience hell and heaven in this life. So, what I was asking you, I agree that in our modern society we don't value elders, but I wasn't saying you as an elder. I was saying you as a woman. I'm saying everybody actually treats women differently to men because they're more emotional, and I call it more childlike. Um, Even though they're more caring, whatever, but there is a difference. So, do you feel it insulting? I know. Do you agree that women are treated differently, even by liberals, like more kindness, more um, understanding? If you have an emotional outburst,
Sure, we are all not just women, be treated differently according to our age and class and status. So I guess I remember it being said that if you want to know what it feels to be like a rock star, you be an attractive woman in your 20s, and you will be treated like a celebrity. And men who have no reason to be nice, to you, are nice to you. And I guess as a woman ages, then that she loses this power. But there should be some conventions in society that still respect women and men, even though they are no longer marriageable prospects. Because
that's true.
the reason why women are being treated as celebrities when they're in their 20s is because they are young and sexy.
Because society is sexualized. That's the thing it values the highest, rather than kindness, wisdom, and all the other things that other different categories of people have. And I like what you were saying. When you were younger, you're more liberal. Essentially, I think I was definitely more liberal. I remember when I got married, I was like thinking to my wife, "You don't have to wear a headscarf." Now it's like, oh, now I get it. Do you know what I mean? And definitely, I ignored my parents a lot. Um, so, and then when you get older, I think this is I've heard it around. Like when you get older, you become more right wing. You start off left wing. Hopefully, if you do learn your lessons, but it's not just a sense of feeling. I think when we discuss me and you, it's very hard to support a lot of left wing ideas like everything's in your mind. There's no biological reality to our lives, which is a weird thing to say. And nobody really believes that because nobody supports bulimia and all these physical health problems. They do say it's not just in your mind, it's in your body. Anyway, okay, so let's see. So I was saying, let's go through this. Testosterone increases your basically ability to be logical. There's also this important thing about being brave, because to make the right moral choice, you have to be brave. So often with my wife, she'd be like, "Oh, that doesn't matter." Like she doesn't want to be confrontational, but somebody has to kind of lay down the law and not let things become chaotic. And I've heard statistics like if you have a single parent household where the dad is the single parent, you don't have all the criminality issues as you do with if you're a mum single parent, which is mostly the case. Which makes sense because mums can't really keep the boundaries, not even with their own girls, right? Um, and they can't apply logic as well. I think you become even less logical when you have children. It's not insulting at all. It's not intended to be insulting. It's just a case of being specialists. So have you heard of
Baby
baby
brain.
brain? Right. So I don't know the full details about baby brain, but I can kind of see it. Um, so so
It
baby
means
brain
women
basically.
having the brain to engage with and interact with infants.
Yeah, small infants where it's not logical, it's all emotional. And I do find like my wife the other day, she's like I keep seeing these kind of things. um she was like she I don't know, I don't know, can you feel temperature differences? Like my 4-year-old's gets a fever, but you can't tell from the outside because she's carrying on playing on the phone, enjoying herself. But my wife can like tell immediately, she's touching and all this kind of stuff, and I could never do that. So I feel like there's massive differences. Like there's kind of, women work more on instincts. They don't have to be logical for their specialized job, but when they try to do something they're not specialized biologically for, they make it really hard for themselves. Like they're forcing themselves to go into engineering and hating every day, but men literally enjoy it, right? And this is I can't remember which word refers, I think it is one of the words even in this verse that I mentioned, like the nature of men is to actually enjoy working. And I do. I enjoy working. I enjoy building, creating, and lots of people like Elon Musk literally give up everything for their job because it's kind of their hobby, doing something. They don't have to. A lot of billionaires really don't have to work. Um, so we've got this we've got bravery, which means you have a certain set of ideas, and there's this which is being demonstrated in something called the gender politics gap. Have you heard of that? It's relatively new for me. Have you heard of the gender politics gap, where women are mainly voting liberal, supporting liberal ideas, and men are increasingly supporting we might call conservative? What's the opposite of
Dissident,
liberal?
right,
Right.
ideas that are supposed to be considered fringe. But women, because they are risk averse, will always support the middle ground. So it's whatever the government says. They're not going to stick their necks out and listen to your conspiracy theory, which is always so complicated and so boring.
Mm, yeah, exactly. My wife finds a lot of these ideas very complicated and boring. She says, oh, talking to you is like going to school, although she loves keeping the certificates from even nursery and things like that, which, because women generally like validation, and that's why you see it's mainly women going to universities nowadays and men not, because they realize university doesn't help you get a job, and they need to get a job. They can't mess around. So yeah, but and also liberal ideas are like, let everybody do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. Why are you bothering them? Why can't you just let transgender people just be transgender, and all this kind of stuff, right? It's the non-confrontational thing. It's not even just the default. It's just like, let everybody do whatever, without really
But
looking at
I
the
mean, women
consequences
do
of
that
trying.
because they think they're going to be protected by men, and men are less friendly to foreigners because they think you know their lives and livelihoods will be threatened, while
Right?
women
Yeah, yeah.
have this layer of protection that men give them, and so they don't understand. They don't see the world through male eyes, and if men try to explain it to them, they'll say how cruel men
Mm.
are, and wouldn't the world be so much nicer if it were run by women?
Yeah,
That's how they
just
traditionally.
nicer. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
if you try to reason with them, they'll hate you for
yeah, because
the argument.
because you're being mean. It doesn't matter
Yes.
how logical it is. And there's like, oh, we don't like stats. That's a very boring. It's a very common thing you would hear. Just not just in my family. As my girls grow up, I hear it more often. I'll tell you a funny thing. My son, who's 19, he just tells me, what is he saying? It's like, they're just women. It's like they're not supposed to be logical. It's like he's come to that conclusion. So it's quite funny. I
Mm.
would say my son's far more logical than anybody, even my wife, right? And I'm not expecting my wife to be logical in the first place. So there's that. What else is there? So there's a yeah, exactly. Men have to deal with the reality of the world. They have to provide. I heard this. There's some famous kind of relationships person, and she's liberal, and she believes in equality and stuff. There was a really good what do you call, a podcast where she's an expert in relationships, and but she's a liberal. But when it comes to her natural instincts kicked in when it came to this particular question. I'll be intrigued by what you think about it. He said, the person asked, Do you know the Diary of a what's it called? Diary of a CEO. That live stream, not that podcast. It's a black
I haven't seen it.
British. You haven't seen it, but anyway. So he asked the question to this expert lady, who's a liberal. Said, if you were at a dinner and you were asked to pay, how would you go for a second date? Because a man would have no problem. He'd be proud usually to pay, right? And she said, even though she's a liberal, she has this instinctual thing, and she had to be honest. It's like there would not be a second date. Like, how would you feel about if you went on a date, let's say, and the man asked you to pay? How would you feel about that?
Well, I would conclude he doesn't like me that much.
But if it was the other way around, the man would be very pleased. Would you? I mean, you wouldn't be. I mean, do you see the difference, isn't it, between
Oh
men and
yes,
women in
yes.
that
I
sense?
mean, the thing is, I mean, I knew a man who said he realised later in life that all this equality thing, that even as women pretend to be feminists and say they want to be equal, they hate being asked to pay for their share of the bill. And this guy said, it took me a while to realise it because I was, just taking them at their word, and then I realised how much they hated me for suggesting that they go Dutch and, what about their half of the bill?
Yeah, I don't think women are purposely being dishonest. Maybe I don't know. I think men are kinder to women than women are kinder to women. That's another thing. So maybe I'm being kind in the sense that women are not purposely dishonest. They just genuinely believe it, and they just something like that. I don't know. I don't know.
And nobody, challenges them about their views. And, this is why. I mean, I don't think women are so stupid that they can't understand it. It's like they're expecting you. It's like, if you don't like the system now, then you change it. Don't moan at, don't just bitch amongst yourselves or moan at us. You change it, and when you change the rules, we'll follow. But you have to change the rules first. You know, I think this is what women expect. It's like, don't expect us to, support your, far right or far left party. You somehow change the rules, and when it's all settled, we'll support you and go along with the whole thing. And I think, to address the title of your stream, is that men can choose good men, but they have to organize themselves in a different way. And the
Did you say women can choose good men?
is key to this.
Because I thought you said men can choose good men. Women can. Yeah, obviously not women. Yeah, sorry.
No,
Obviously, we're
men
talking
can't
about her.
choose. It's like men really have no choice. If all the women in the world were sluts, you just have to take us as we are. You just hope that your slut is not as bad as the others. But
You know
and
what?
if we're all
Maybe I should
brides, you have to take us as we are too.
clarify where I'm coming from, because I don't think I've been very clear. Maybe so. On my point of view is the traditional point of view, where women really shouldn't be choosing their husbands. It's always been traditionally the dad has to analyze the husband to be and ask him tough questions, and he doesn't go with, like, if the husband to be was told the dad, I don't know, how do you describe the dad of the girl to be getting married, right? If he said, oh, you look really good, you're like, yeah, what? So I don't care that I look. But if you say that to a woman, she'll just believe it, because words matter to women, right? I was talking to one of my students, and I was surprised. I was just intrigued, like, because she's always talking about bullying between girls, and it's like, what? Why do the words that other girls say matter to you? Because they're probably not true. Like, if somebody said words to me, it would be like no difference. Like, you can say I'm orange, I'm short, I'm this, but like I'll be like whatever. But women are affected by words, right? So a man who wants to take advantage of a woman, right? He can just lie through his teeth and say, "Oh, you look amazing, you're this and that." It's easy for men to do that, and women believe it, right? So the dad has to be the logical person who takes care of the needs of women.
Yes, I
I'm
see
not
you're
saying
talking
women.
about arranged marriages.
Yes, but that's exactly. Thank you for clarifying. So I'm saying women need to be protected by an arranged marriage system. Otherwise, what you get, which is I'm going to kind of point out, I suppose, later on about in this stage, is that you can see that getting into relationships, women are terrible because they're basically choosing psychopaths, like according to psychological terminology, psychopaths, basically people who don't have feelings. We know that through the Tinder's data, where a few men are having sex with most of the women, and for few men to do that, they have to be so emotionally detached. That's a sign of psychopathy, right? You have sex with somebody, you're supposed to have an emotional connection with them, but then you don't talk to them again, you have sex with the next person. So that's a psychopath. That's not a healthy thing, right? um and then also getting out of relationships. Most divorces are initiated by women, even though they suffer the most, because you're used up basically as a woman. Once you've had children, you know, you're like, nobody wants to marry you, so you're going to be by yourself. You're not earning as much money as while you were with your husband, who is just more efficient money maker. That's another thing we've been talking about in the past. So it really doesn't make sense. Like, women are terrible. The West has demonstrated, or at least women in Western relationships or in the West are terrible at relationships. So they need to be protected.
By the
Does that make
rules. Yes, but
by
by the
rules
rules.
the men?
Yes, and the men don't want to change it because they're afraid of these women who are stupider than they are. And that is the worst thing about the whole thing, right? It's like, there you are saying women are a bit, illogical, and then you have the overwhelming majority of the Western male population saying we submit to the whims and fancies of these women whose judgment we don't respect, but we submit to them in order to have sex with them. That's how they
Absolutely,
think.
absolutely.
So you talk about psychopathy, and this is basically the mindset of the average Western male. Pump 'em and dump 'em, and pump, dump,
Well, the
run.
ones who can, the rest are like, as modern terminology goes, beta or beta males who just get nothing, and they've just given up. A lot of them, yeah. So, and then there was this bit about, I think it's important that because women are weaker or more agreeable is more, I probably should have used that terminology because it's more like psychological terminology, or more readily acceptable. So they're just kinder, but kindness doesn't scale, as a Jordan Peterson an idea. Basically, kindness works you know, I don't know the words, but basically, kindness without limits works when you're taking care of a baby, maybe up to a 2-year-old, people you can't negotiate with, right? You just have to be kind, right? Otherwise, they'll be dead. Um, so that's what women are really good for, and that's why they're built
No,
for. That's why they.
men want their women to be kind and stupid. I mean, basically, that's
Oh
what
yeah,
they
that
really
as
want.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and they,
yeah.
they don't want them to be kind and stupid to foreign men, do they?
Ah, yes. That's a really good point. I was thinking about that. Yeah. So women work really well. They fit really well when they're within the protection of a family, with the dad, father, husband, whatever, taking care of things. Just like children, I make this point later on. Um, Children are great. They have fun, whatever, when they're protected. But if they're just left alone, they die. It doesn't work for them. They get abused, taken advantage of. Same with women. They get abused, taken advantage of in the workplace, for example, because they will do anything not to lose a job. Like, a man happily walks away from jobs. I remember losing a job in Jordan, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And I was like, yeah, whatever, man. It's a crap job. It's like, but my wife, for some reason, had to turn up because of some sort of translation thing, and she literally started crying in the office. I was like, whatever, man, it's a crap job. I'm getting more in 1 hour than I get a whole day in this place, right? But it was all right. It was a good starting point, right? So it's like she started crying. It's like because women feel insulted. Um, they have a different sense of status or something. They need to be accepted by whoever's around them and stuff like that. So that's why they have like they need to be kind and not disagreeable because they don't like that idea. But it doesn't scale outside the family. Men are logical, they're less personal. Like, my wife's a lot kinder than I am. Like, she'll be telling me to call my husband, my dad up, who's had an operation, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. So I'm less personal. I even forget lots of basic things like that. But outside in the working world, that works. It's like, oh, I tried something. Like any if you want to create something in the real world, you're going to mess up a million times. I don't know, the whole light bulb thing with he's the guy who made the light bulb. Whatever. There's a
Franklin?
what was his name?
Benjamin Franklin?
Really? No, the light bulb guy. He's the one who got electrocuted. I mean, struck by lightning. Um, there's the two people competing.
Leibniz? No.
Sorry, there's
Leibniz.
Tesla's arch enemy. Who was it? Sorry.
I thought it was Leibniz or Franklin.
Oh no, I'm sure I could probably Google it. Everybody, it's
No,
pretty in my.
it's not really relevant to what we're discussing.
But the point is that he had to try 1,000 times before he actually created the light bulb, right? There's so many experiments. Now, if you care about people's opinions, that's not going to work. You have to not give a crap, right? And
Yes.
that comes more naturally to men. We don't give a crap less. They're more feminized men, maybe, or something like, oh no, right? There is a spectrum of people, right? Yeah. Anyway, so you kind of have to not give a crap. If you do give a crap about what everybody's going to say, then you're not going to make moral choices, because moral choices are often difficult and against the grain and all this kind of stuff. But having said all of that.
Sorry, Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison, thank you. Yes, that's the one, right? Did you search that up? We just remembered.
Yes. I mean, I did sort of know it, but I
sort of knew it as well. But I'm rubbish like remembering names and stuff for some reason. Anyway, so there's another verse of the Quran that does give women agency, but I think limited agency, I would say, right? Because in terms of who they're naturally attracted, not naturally attracted to based on principles. So basically, good women are for good men. And so I put ... because it's kind of, the Quran talks about more, it says like other stuff which is really similar. Okay, but anyway, as I say, always do check out the document for references for the whole verse and everything. Just click on it over here and you get the whole verse. But anyway, the point is, like attracts like. This is a reality which logically makes sense. So for example, if you're a thief, you would happily marry another thief, because that's short-term thinking. It's like, oh, I can get this right now, and you're whoever, similar. But if you're like really religious, you're thinking like to the next life, right? So you're thinking, I can't rob somebody because I'm sacrificing my next life, or even my soul or my feelings now. So people who are on the same wavelength, maybe there's a wavelength which is like, oh, let's get stuff right now, let's rob somebody, let's steal something, let's lie, whatever. That's one wavelength of understanding. But then if you're on a different wavelength, you're thinking really long term, then other people with the same wavelength appreciate that, right? So if you're on wavelength, if your husband is thieving wavelength and you as a wife are on long-term wavelength, those don't really work together, and so you're not going to really like each other. Does that make sense? Kind of like,
yes, we have to be compatible for our relationships to last.
Yeah, that's a more simple way of saying it. Yeah, so good women are for good men. It's not just a theory, it makes sense. you know. Like does attract like. um so women, so yeah, so women can be attracted to the right people. So even if your dad in this arranged marriage system is protecting you, try to choose good people for you, but you are essentially short-sighted, immoral, and whatever, you're not really going to like a good man, because he'll be like thinking long term and making good choices, and you won't want those good choices because you see them as deferring happiness, basically. um, so you need to be a good person yourself. So that's that. Um, and then yeah, and I've already said, we deep down we know women are like children. Um, so oh yeah, my point was not just to be insulting again, but the reference to children was that yeah, they can be good, but they need to be protected for them to be good as they can be, just like children need to be protected for them to flourish as well. Yeah, so those are my ideas. Thank you. We today we had I discussed. I mean, Claire and I discussed beforehand that I'd do a monologue. Didn't quite monologue. Maybe that would be boring anyway. But yeah, so those are my ideas in a nutshell. We've got a few comments. One pointless comment, because he's got nothing useful to say. But who's this guy? I'm sure we had Ramiz on before. A woman will call you toxic just because you won't give money to her broke ex. Yeah, I suppose, because they only see things from their own perspective, limited perspective, and maybe that's what they're designed for. That's an interesting discussion. I like to interact with comments, especially, right? So I do feel that women have a what I would describe as a sheltered perspective, and they can't see beyond that easily. They um, they need to be sheltered, and they see things in a sheltered way. Um,
Like
they like
children.
to complain. Sorry.
Like children.
Yeah, exactly right. So coming back to Ramiz's comment, like they just see that they should have money, they should be provided for, um, and maybe if the broke ex who's not providing is not providing, is like, okay, then I want money somehow and I deserve it, just like a kid would expect that. Like, I'm a kid and I just want my lolly and I want my stuff and I want whatever, my toys, and I expect it. And women think the same way. And I don't think they're being mean.
They're just
They're
given all this
designed.
power. They're given all this power and these words to attack men with. And men are just
Ah,
not doing anything. They're just whinging because they need to
yeah.
change the rules, or they will forever, or it'll just get worse.
Yeah, that's true as well, right? So there's one that they women are designed to take, right? And not in a bad way, because like um, I remember one of my spiritual teachers, the fourth Khalifa, said one really politically incorrect thing, but the more I thought about it, it really made sense. And he said women are designed to receive, just like they receive sperm and they make a baby, so, but they also feel comfortable taking, like they'll be in a house, like a man will be shy to take from another man, like they'll apologize a million times, say money for example, but a woman would be there in the house and be like, I need more money, I need more money. She doesn't feel shy about it. It's her nature, because her job is to take the money and do something with it, right? Man's job is to make the money and give it, kind of thing, essentially.
Mhm.
But not just to give it willy-nilly. You kind of have to have some limits, because women just like, they don't see the long term, and they don't have too much creativity in my experience. They're like, those like, we have to spend money this way even if there might be a better way. So men do have to be a bit careful in managing money in that sense. But yeah, so it's in their nature to take and use it in a good way, and that's, I'm not saying that in an insulting way, but also, like you were saying, they're being encouraged by the current kind of propaganda that how do you summarize the propaganda that men are terrible or something and women deserve how would you summarize the propaganda? I mean, there's a bit of this propaganda, do you know, the Homer Simpson kind of thing where they men are considered like stupid
Yes,
and fumbling idiots,
that fathers, married fathers, are considered stupid. There's a
right?
stereotype of, he's incompetent, he's Homer Simpson,
Yeah,
and
and Family Guy's another one. They do the same thing, right? um do you know
and
Family Guy? Maybe you don't know that one. That's
getting
another cartoon.
children and women to mock them, and
Yeah,
discouraging men from becoming fathers. Because I mean that's the sort of anti-marriage propaganda, isn't it? You marry and
yeah.
you'll be treated like shit by your children and your yeah, and the women around you.
Yeah, and it's really important for men to feel like they're going into something where they might be respected for working a
Yeah,
billion hours. Yeah, yeah. So that makes
exactly.
sense.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there was a terrible comedy program called Outnumbered. I don't know if you heard of it or watched it a bit. Outnumbered, do you remember?
I think, is it like 1990s? But I don't actually remember it. I mix
A
it up with 2.4
BBC.
Children.
Yeah, so basically, it's this man, middle class. They live in London. They've got really, rude children that you just want to slap,
Yeah.
and he's permanently worried about, whatever, his children who obviously sneer at him and think he's stupid. Um,
Mm.
and this is deliberate BBC policy. Like, you're
Mm.
stupid if you become a father. This is what's going to happen to you, and you'll hate it. Why don't you become gay? Why don't you, you know, pump and dump women? Why don't you become a serial killer? All these unspoken assumptions that, the BBC, whose license fee we pay, are, pumping
Yeah,
into the minds of.
the more you talk about it, the more I kind of realize it was orchestrated, designed, not an accident. Because when I saw it in Peppa Pig, they do the same thing. You know Peppa Pig, right? They do that in Peppa Pig. They do that in so many cartoons. I was thinking, like, maybe people are just influenced. The people who are making these cartoons have been influenced, and then they've started insulting the dads consistently in all these different cartoons. But the more I think about it, like, why would that be a thing to do? Like, in a family friendly cartoon, why would he insult the dad? That's a really mean thing to do. So I kind of agree.
To undermine the patriarchy and destroy it.
Yeah, yeah. So my point is that why would you do it unwittingly? You must have done it by purpose. There must be a design in
Mm,
consistently across cartoons, across
mm.
even generations, like you're talking about now. I'm not even sure if there's another generation, but for decades at least. That's a really interesting idea. That consistently there's been propaganda through light-hearted TV to devalue the patriarchy, family. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, masculinity, because there used to be westerns, and westerns were basically about, courage, creativity, um, you know, things of that nature, which are just not tackled anymore. I think people just cringe when you talk about morality and principles.
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. So yeah, why? Why? Because another bit of propaganda for many decades has been the focus on freedom rather than responsibility, and which is really bad for us, and we don't realize that. I always mention Viktor Frankl, who said, next to the Statue of Liberty, there should be the Statue of Responsibility, because he realized that we need meaning to be happy, and meaning only comes through responsibility. Responsibility is just another word for saying you're going to do something difficult because it means something. It has values of has principles behind it. So people don't realize that, I suppose. Yeah. So I mean, I keep like coming back to the question: can women choose good men? Suppose I would say generally no, unless they're
I'm saying that
protected.
they can help themselves. They can
Say
help
again?
themselves. Um, did I mention earlier the practice of slut shaming? It was basically saying it's bad for men and your society if men get free love, which is a Victorian expression. So,
Oh,
because I guess, way back, then in the age of Victoria, they was saying, why do we have to be so sexually repressed? What's the big deal with all these rules, etc.?
wow. I thought it was a 60s term, free love.
Um, I think it was. I'll look it up, but I remember
Maybe it's just
reading.
being rehashed. We've gone through a
Yeah.
cycle.
So the idea is that um, that's not allowed, and um, and I suppose that there were all these people who didn't see the point. Why can't we just have sex with whoever we like? What is the
Hmm.
problem? You know, and 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 so if you already think that it is a problem, then you will have to kind of make sure that people don't break the rule of and because women are the suppliers of sex to men, then you have to tell them not to um, sleep with have sex with men, not their husbands. But then
Hmm.
the thing is um, what would happen if you in a pub, supposing you go there and a woman came in and her reputation was that she's a woman of easy virtue, and
Hmm.
you were looking to have some sex. Well, you would be approaching her and you would be nice to her and you would buy her a drink and you would suggest all kinds of things in order. But so the whole idea in the olden days was that women would slut shame each other,
Hmm.
and that would make it hard for the woman of easy virtue to operate, and she would feel slut shamed, and she would guard her
Yes.
reputation.
Yeah, you made me think about two things, I suppose. So first of all, like people at first glance would say slut shaming, that's really bad. And I don't like insulting people, but there's something called, is it culture? No. Taboo. Probably taboo, yeah. Right. And it's good to think through why certain things are taboo, right? Like maybe picking your nose in public or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And more things. But when we look into it, like those things have developed over time as a way of saying this is really bad. Don't do it. Like don't have sex with lots of strangers, whatever. That's one thing. And then I mentioned this girl one of my students, right? And there's some really, I don't say which country, basically not in Europe, let's say, but she's a Westerner, but outside Europe, yeah. Um, and there's like really horrific things happening in this really sexually promiscuous society. And one example is that she's had two friends die, okay, that are girls, and a recent one was like, and this is all about protection, why men need to protect women, right? So you might think it's okay for your daughter to go to another person's house, and we were talking about it recently. um my our Khalifa, a spiritual leader, it's the Jalsa, by the way, at the moment. You've been to it last year, didn't you?
Oh yes, oh
And
yes.
he was giving a speech, and he was saying like, you should don't let your daughters go to other people's houses without protection, like a man or maharam, you call it, right? Or even a woman if you want to do something. But I don't think women are as vigilant, maybe, or as sharp, let's say. um, so she was telling me a friend of her died because sh the the friend went to another friend's house, a girl's house, right? And okay, so this girl went to this girl's house, because I'm thinking I'm going to make it complicated. The friend spiked the girl's drink. Okay, so she was out, like drunk or whatever it is, right? Or some sort of, so she wasn't, in full control. And then the dad raped this girl that visited the house and choked her to death as well, or something like that, right? It's like maybe, you know what I mean? Like, we think it's all safe. We're just going to somebody else's house, but it's a weak thing, right? So that's just another example of things we overlook. We
It
just
was
think
at a sleepover, was it?
it wasn't. Might have been a sleepover. I'm not sure about the details, but he went to somebody else's house. Right, a girl went to somebody else's house, even a friend's house, and you might say, "Oh, that's a bit strict," but look at that. I mean, what's your opinion? Am I sounding too strict?
I suppose really the vigilant parent would want to know what kind of parent um, this child has.
And you might, but mostly these people give a good impression about themselves. Most people don't give a bad impression about themselves. You know what I mean? You don't know their intentions and stuff like that. And
You
yeah,
don't know who would be in the house at the time, the girls are having their sleepover.
but you
And,
might
and
do. You might know them. You might think, oh, the dad is in the house, but the dad's all really friendly and fluffy, isn't he? Until you find out what's really in his mind. And
yeah,
I don't
or
know.
these sleepovers are when they, get drunk and take drugs together.
Mm, that as well. I'm often really surprised, like how all these girls and kids generally go to these big parties, like these house parties that you see in American TV, where they also have it in this particular country. Um, like they're all taking drugs and they're just teenagers by themselves doing all sorts. They could be up to anything between with themselves, and how parents allow that, I can't understand it. And they're having like multiple relationships, like and I'm talking to a friend of his in a neighboring country, hers, and their relationships last for like 2 weeks, and then they're
Mm.
on to the next person and the next person. It's like, how do you think that's going to work? And I think she's getting more and more depressed. Like, she started smoking. She never smoked when I started with her, only last year. And people,
Hmm.
if I ask her, like, why do you smoke? It's like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of like not able to look deep down into like her own feelings.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm just like, wow, what a mess. I mean, I couldn't let that happen to my own kids. Let them go anywhere unprotected. I mean, we were thinking about it at one point, like, but then we found out how bad some of the friends were in the particular school, and it's supposed to be a decent school, but like, there's a lot of bad kids around, right? Really messed up ideas of not being taken care of properly themselves. So I don't know. How do you feel? Like, do I sound overprotective? Um,
Not at all. But I mean, there are just so many dangers in the West, as
yeah.
you have,
And I'm talking
but
about even in this country, because this country is becoming westernized, more gay
yeah.
people, more whatever, more freedom, especially if you're richer. And this particular school, I think, has got a lot of broken marriages, because I'm not sure, but I mean, there are a lot more divorces in Jordan happening now. I'm going to that possibly, but I think what's special about this school is that it's what we might maybe call Harveys, like half Arab, half something else, half Eastern Europe, half Russian, half
Mm.
all sorts of other people. The dads have gone abroad and found a wife, that kind of thing.
Yes, Arab
And it doesn't
European.
seem to work out. Yeah, yeah,
Going to international school, because I mean going to international school just basically means you're neither fish nor fowl, and you don't speak your own
mm,
language properly. And I'm sorry, I have to um,
sure.
answer the doorbell.
Going on. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we've covered a couple of things. Oh, sis, Remy said that already. And then we've got, oh, okay, Wikipedia on what, secular free love. Oh, I see. Early presidents. Okay. And there were a couple of things. My friend Adam from my Quran class, who's essentially a liberal, pointed out. He shared some articles to disprove some of the things I'm saying, but they were really weak ones from Men's Health, and basically it was just it didn't have any counter evidence. It just kind of looked down on, like, it started off with a story that there were these scientists who basically it was trying to counteract my argument, or not my argument really, just data that testosterone makes you more logical, right? And it's not surprising. We can see it in real life. Men who have more testosterone are more mathematically inclined. It's really, really well known. It's not even hidden. You really have to have really strong counter evidence to disprove that, right? Um,
Back again.
Yeah, so I was talking about Adam. We both know Adam from the Quran class. So he's really good in the sense that whenever he sees one of my streams and he sees the material that I provide, he has something to say about it. He's very liberal, as we both know. So he shared some articles just before the stream, but he won't come on a stream because my opinion is that you liberals can't, stand up for their arguments. It's impossible. But anyway, but he's kind enough, and I thank him for actually looking through the document and then trying to provide counter evidence. So he provided an article from Men's Health magazine. It's not exactly a scientific article, okay, to say that the idea of testosterone makes you more logical is wrong. So this really weak article, first of all, it doesn't even counter the evidence, even doesn't even tell you that there is evidence. It just makes fun of this claim, right? It starts off by saying about 100 years ago there were some scientists who injected themselves with testosterone and they mixed it up with blood, and these scientists felt younger and sharper and all these kind of things, and 2,000 scientists copy them. And then instead of saying how it was wrong logically and it was proved wrong, it was kind of like it was like, oh, people aren't, all it kind of said essentially was people must have been stupid in the past, but you can't believe that. They didn't even counter it with evidence. It was more like a feeling argument. So it was a really weak article, is all I'll say. I politely said I skimmed through it and I couldn't see any counter evidence. So, yeah. And it didn't even provide the evidence that there was. It didn't even try to confront it and argue against it. So, really weak argument. And then there was another article. He gave a couple of articles. He said, "Oh, the fact that there was I said there's a gender politics gap," and he gave an article that says, "Oh, it's that the headline essentially said, are men and women growing apart?" And it said, "Not so fast." That's the title, right? But when you actually read the title, it says, "Oh, it is happening." But can we really trust the data? I think we need more data. That's what it said. It's like there's really weak arguments, one after the other. But I think that's the liberal way. It's like we don't really know anything. I mean, is that what you feel like? I don't know if you're there, but that's kind of like the liberal argument. It's like we don't really know. Are you sure? Like every all that data you've got, I don't know.
Correlation is not
Yeah,
causation. It's not
yeah,
how
well,
much correlation.
yeah. Doesn't
Doesn't
mean
have to be
causation.
until you accept that it is causation.
Yeah, and it probably is like 99% of the time, but that doesn't matter. Maybe 1% of the time it isn't. But also, like, what do we really know? And it's kind of fashionable. The Dalai Lama has made this fashionable. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna make a fart sound, and that'll make me really holy, kind of thing. I don't know. He doesn't. Does he fart, or he just makes weird sounds, and then he says he doesn't know?
He invites little boys to suck his tongue.
Oh, that
That's
as well. Yeah, that was revealing. And people don't really know. I've talked about that, but this is kind of a sidetrack. But I've talked about people because of all the propaganda, and I think the same kind of level of propaganda that to make dads look stupid in cartoons. I think there's a lot of intended propaganda, let's say, not accidental, to make Buddhist monks look really cool. While if you actually dig into it in Thailand and stuff like that, there's a major problem with pedophilia, and people don't send their kids near these Buddhist monks. Just like you have the same problem with, Christian priests. And why? The reason why I'm explaining it is because they've decided that it's cool to be celibate. And no, it's not. It's unnatural, and you eventually, you know, need some sort of way of getting it out. And I explained in my last stream that I think the reason why there's a massive spike in pedophilia, especially in America, is because, like we know, half of men, young men, are not having sex, and they should be at this age. Like I said, the highest testosterone levels they're going to have, right? So they're not having it, so they're going for porn, and porn gets you on a cycle of increasingly violent, nasty stuff until it gets to pedophilia. And then they go for the real stuff because maybe it's easier to abuse children than it is adults, or something like that. So yeah, so what the Dalai Lama did about trying to suck some kids' tongue. I mean, he's getting old, and he's not going to be able to hide probably a lot of the stuff he probably gets you up to. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that. I like that I'm claiming that he's a pedophile behind closed doors, but we know loads of other Buddhist monks are pedophiles. So why wouldn't he? And isn't it like a natural conclusion based on nature that if you're not having sex and you're denying yourself these basic needs, then you're probably doing something wrong. What do you think about that? A bit of a sidetrack, but might as well go down there.
Yeah, if you're not having sex with women, you're probably having sex with men.
Yeah, that or kids or whatever, whatever you can get away with. Okay, cool. So let's do a roundup. You've already suggested that I do a kind of a final say, but before that, you have your final say. Answering the question, can women choose good men? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think they can, but only if they practice slut shaming, which is something their ancestors did, but maybe a bit of a far cry to them now because their views are so different to their female ancestors a few generations ago. But I think the reasoning behind it can be easily explained and explained by um, by the media. I mean, if they wanted to, somebody with a sufficiently authoritative voice can explain all these things. What is needed is the political will to say so. So I don't think it's completely hopeless. It just needs for the case to be made, and I feel that the case is not being made, or people are afraid to make it, and it would be the men who are afraid to make it because on the one hand, men. I mean, I think the trouble is men have become women because they're also made neurotic by the idea that on the one hand they would like virgin brides, on the other hand they want. They probably think a bird. Well, how does that expression go? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Which is that they're not really thinking of getting married because the culture is that everybody or nearly everybody has sex outside marriage. So they're not thinking of marriage, and because they have no religion, they don't think in moral terms about these things. It's about what works for them as individuals. Sadly.
Yeah.
And this is where
Really?
religion comes in, that shows how you can solve all these problems with these rules, but they can't even think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So besides the stuff I've already said, I suppose I'll repeat that, which is women are much like children. They need to be protected. They can't choose good men because they're easily swayed by empty words, by bad men, and good men get, left to one side because they don't want to lie and stuff like that and whatever. So we know statistically women are choosing psychopaths. We can see the data is saying that women are really bad at choosing good men. That's a simple answer. But then you said something just at the end, and I thought, that reminds me of something really interesting that's happening. You said something about, essentially, I think you said something about you didn't say it in political class, but you said the government or no authority is correcting this with the data. They could easily say with the data, this is really bad. We've got population implosion, but nobody's correcting it. The political class, let's call it, the government are not correcting it. And that's really interesting because do you know there's a really famous, he's supposedly the most popular political leader at the moment, the president of El Salvador. Do you know this guy? The guy who put like 70,000 uh, gang members into prison, but he's also done some other cool stuff. Do you know?
His
That guy?
father is Muslim.
Yes, and he's a Muslim apparently, but he's not
Mhm.
making. But he is very spiritual. Like in an interview with Tucker Carlson recently, he said like he said in his like public speech, which I didn't really listen to, but it's another first step one is ask for God's help. Like he's really spiritual. Anyway, so he's been saying in a lot of speeches that he's been being condemned for fixing the crime problem, and he thought even by human rights people say, oh, you put all these murderers into prison, it's really unfair, like we should leave them out to keep murdering or something. And he said it's no accident that Western governments are they like chaos because they can take advantage of chaos. And then it made me think back to what you said. It's like, why is nobody in authority telling people that even if they're secular, right? You can statistically say, having sex outside marriage is bad for crime and so many other things, right? Why is nobody saying something? I mean, one reason would be they just want to be in government for another 4 years, but I don't think these people really care about that. They're all the same people in different political parties. They just care about the money, right? I think all sides of the political spectrum, all the people in charge, they like the chaos because you can take advantage of people when there's chaos. When you have calm, you have order, people could start thinking for themselves and saying, why is this happening? Why is that happening? So I think there are a lot of bad things happening by purpose. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Go on, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I was just agreeing with you that it is deliberate, the chaos.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you for reminding me of that. Really, that inspirational young man who is now president of San Salvador.
Yeah. Second term, which is apparently really unusual, but is very popular. Jay has arrived. Jay has reminded me of. Hi, Jay.
Afternoon, Khalid. Afternoon, Claire. Or early evening, Claire.
We are going to wrap up, but there was something I was going to say, but I forget a lot of things. Then
I thought you just started at 8 o'clock 10 minutes ago.
Oh, no. But there was something that Claire said then, and I thought I might remember that you predicted will happen. So when you don't have a religion, you have more liberalism, more of a breakdown of society and rules, because there are no rules. There's no God. There's no reason to do anything in particular. Right? Well, actually, there are, because the statistics tell you that the more you break down any religious laws, you tend to pay for it. Religion seems to be backed up with science. But then you said something really interesting, maybe one or two streams ago. Well, one or two when you came a long time, or a while back, maybe not that while back. You said that you predict that after like homosexuality and transgenderism, people are going to go to beastliness or something, basically having sex with animals. You said that, right?
Yeah. Well, because in the 80s and 90s, the liberal and progressive push was reflected or directed upon gays, homosexuals. But once they got what they wanted in terms of gay marriage, property rights, employment rights, everything, the insane order wasn't finished. So then that's when they got onto the transgender stuff. and they won't stop. They are in. It's like a robber. A robber will continue to rob, and he'll rob not just money or gold or silver. He'll rob whatever because he's a robber. So the liberal progressive agenda will continue to try to F up society and very anti-God. And if you see the Paris Olympics, the stuff that was going on at the start there, that'll be them in their element. You know?
Oh, I didn't see that, but yeah, and I think it's by purpose, because the liberal and relatively small number of people who support the transgender movement, all this kind of stuff, they get a lot of support by the government. And we've been talking, me and Claire, about like how the active, making fun of father figures. I mean, are you aware of that? Like Peppa Pig,
Yeah.
you always have a stupid dad. You have Homer in The Simpsons, stupid dad. You have Family Guy, stupid dad. And then Claire was talking about something generations ago, maybe in the 1990s. What was it called?
It was called Outnumbered.
Outnumbered. Do you remember that, Jay?
Vaguely, yeah.
It's
very it's subtle in advertising as well, and it is against men. It is against the traditional male role in general. So
which keeps everything together, right? That's why you have to attack that to break it down.
Yeah. No, I hear it. It's insane. But the Olympics, they had the Last Supper, obviously Christianity and Jesus. They had 12. Like one was a woman with a beard. There was one bloke who had his testicle hanging out. Like, but it was a few. Like literally. I mean, Claire saw it, didn't you, Claire?
They had somebody with their testicles hanging out.
I thought it was probably a wardrobe accident. In fact, Stephen and I streamed about it yesterday, but unfortunately the entire stream was removed for copyright reasons because it featured just a few clips from it.
It's basically like women with beards, really, really out of shape, obese women, with bikinis on and that type of stuff. And that was like one of the demonstrations, or that's what they produced in Paris. And even a lot of conservative French families were like so embarrassed and hating it. That's what the progressive agenda does. And they at the moment they're looking for the gay legal age of consent to be lowered from 16 towards 12. I mean, it goes on anyway, but so they wonon't stop until
the door to sexual abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's paedophilia legally, but what they're looking to do is change the legal terms, the legal definition of it, in order so they're not paedophiles, and they'll probably succeed. In this country, we've got a Labour government.
And people don't realise that. They don't realise the downward spiral that you've easily seen. You just have to draw a line. Where is this going? It's really obvious. But we don't like to accept that line. It's like, the liberals say, it's just, they'll say two things. It's like, we can't imagine it. But I think the main thing they say, and this is kind of a women's thing, really, and beta males who are following on with it, it's like this idea, like, it's just being kind. Why are you being so restrictive? Why have you got any right to tell any woman not to have a beard or to be fat? Why are you fat shaming? That's a really cruel thing to do, right? But actually those women's dads, or maybe mums, in the privacy of their house, should be saying, like, this is really unhealthy. It's not about fat shaming. This is really unhealthy. Stop eating so much. It's not good for you. Right? And I'm not saying it from hate. It's a place of love. It's just like if I tell my kids, I want them to have an ice cream, but not 10 ice creams. And it's not hate. It's good. It's kindness. It's real love, right?
Well, I think irrespective of which religion, the further humanity moves away from God, the more that there is space for liberal progressives to. I mean, they're not going to do this stuff in Iran and Russia or China, really. they'll do it obviously in the West. I get that, but the further that the more distance between them and God, the closer they are to complete like insane bedlam. And it is going in that direction, yeah. It's
so
just,
to wind up, to answer the question, can women choose good men? I think you missed most of what we said.
it's it all,
So
sadly, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you say your thoughts.
It's a huge. I'm sorry because it's a fascinating topic. Can women choose good men? Very, very quickly for you. These days, good men are not the same as what was considered good men 30 years ago, as in wage earners, reliable, dependent, honourable, clean, father, they'll look after the garden type. Nowadays it's just so different. Men emotionally available, tattoos, quiet, let the woman be leader. That's what a good man is. Very, very subservient, but they look macho. A lot of women where I am, they're like men that have beards and muscles, but don't act like what we think of men. So the definition of men has changed with women.
It's easy to grow some muscles, but it's much harder to, have a steady job, pay for your children, take care of your children. That's the real macho stuff. Very good point.
So what women,
the whole tattoo thing, it was like such a disgusting thing 20 years ago. It's like you'd have to be druggy or biker, mentally disturbed.
This is what I mean with the progressive agenda. So they used to be in circuses. They'd have an ugly man and a tattooed man, and so they used to be like circus acts. But can women choose good men? So I've said what I've said about the definition of what a good man is these days compared to years ago. Can women choose them? Secretly, I think they want that. And that's what's best for them. But I think they struggle because socially. It's not acceptable. But you're better off with a tattoo man. That's yeah.
So my answer,
right,
if you like this very politically incorrect, but very traditional, and what we've been doing for hundreds of years, probably thousands of years, right? No, women are easily swayed by words. They care about words, and any really bad men will lie through their teeth and tell them how wonderful and beautiful they are to get what they want, which is sex out of them, right? And they need to protected, and this is the really politically incorrect thing, right? Women are like children, right? So we treat women like children. Even if you're a liberal, you treat women with more kindness than you would with a man, right? If a woman has an emotional outburst, we know that's a woman. She's emotional. And that's fine because we like women to be emotional. We don't want to be boringly logical like the men. Men are logical. It has a function. We create awesome things, but we don't want to be efficient all the time. We like the emotional side of women, and they care more, and they're kind, and all this kind of stuff, right? But basically, my point of view is we need arranged marriages again, because women are statistically choosing badly. They're choosing badly getting into relationships. You can see on Tinder, they actively go for psychopaths. Psychopath means people who don't have any emotional connection, right? And that's been shown because the people who get the most sex are the people who discard women for one-night stands. And the women are also bad in relationships instead of getting out of them because they're number one in asking for divorce, even though they pay the most. Because men like me, we're 40, you just get younger, right? You got more money. You can just, it doesn't matter if you get divorced for a man really as much, right? But a woman, all her looks are gone, right? She's spent, right? And she's burdened with children, and no man really wants somebody else's children, right? No. So it's like, it makes no sense. Yet women are choosing more than men to get divorced, right? So like they're really bad at relationships. Okay, so they need to be protected by male father figures or husbands and all this kind of stuff, right? And on top of that, I don't want to say women don't have any agency. So they can, when their dads put forward a good eligible suitor, as they say in the old terminology, right? They have to be willing to accept them. And the only way you can accept, a woman can accept a good man, is she needs to be a good person, because like attracts like. The Quran says good men are for good women, right? Because bad men are distasteful for good women, because it's a different wavelength. Because good actions are for long-term thinking. Bad behavior is short-term thinking, like robbing a bank. That's short-term thinking, because you're going to be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life, like that kind of thing. So that's my answer, and I feel like I've heard a lot of yeses from you, and I think we agree on this.
No, I get the general point. It's better than the way it's going. I don't think arranged marriages. I think if you had a society that was
so you don't, after all of that yeses, you don't agree with arranged marriages, or did I misunderstand?
Well, no. If I quickly say that if you had a society that was decent and decent morals and laws and legislation, everything, then I don't think there's a need for arranged marriages.
Do we have a decent society, Ray? Jay?
Well, that's
How are we going to get to a decent society?
Backtrack now. We were on the same path and agreeing, and now you're just becoming a bit of a liberal. You got a bit of a liberal in you. Just wipe that liberal out of yourself.
He can't make up his mind. It's a woman prerogative. It's a woman's prerogative to change her mind.
How would you know what a woman is?
Jay is exercising this prerogative to never make up his mind.
In some cases,
and this is so fatal to Western survival, because men who behave like women and think like them and talk like them are not going to get the respect they need. And anyway, back to the title of this stream: Can women choose good men? Can men choose good women? Perhaps we'll discuss that.
Maybe that'll be the next one.
That's a brilliant topic.
Jay, for the next one. Can men choose good women?
And Jay should be your star guest, because he knows all about choosing good women.
Next week, you up for it? 7:00?
Yeah, Jay? I'm good. Yeah.
We've got the topic. All right, cool. All right, thank you very much, Jay, for joining. I know you could only be there for a bit, but I think we agreed, except for when you just turned liberal. It's not your fault exactly,
No, right. Okay, I forgive you. Using the Christian spirit and thank you for letting me on for 5 minutes and only giving Claire 30 seconds to abuse me, but I don't mind.
Well, I don't want that to continue, because it will go both ways in a minute. All right, thank you very much. Bye.
Okay,
thank
bye.
you,
bye.